What's up, Hoop fans? Welcome back to Misfit TV, the channel where we bring entertainment and sports talk straight to you. I'm your host, Jalen, and this is my guy, Jake. Jake, how are you doing today, man?
Hoping for a Clippers win tonight.
Bro, honestly, it's been a nice little Western Conference set of matchups going on in this first round, and I can't wait to kind of dive into that a little bit more. Today, we're just going to talk straight first round. We're going to look at some of our biggest takeaways from the first round so far. A lot of the series in the Eastern Conference are already pretty much done and over with. We brought the brooms out a couple days ago. So that's pretty much been handled. Some of the Western Conference matchups have also either came to a close or are pretty much right around the corner as of the day we're recording this. So Jake, let's just get right into it, man. What is your first takeaway from what you've seen so far in the first round of the playoffs so far?
Honestly, it's been the Trailblazers. I've been kind of riding them throughout this whole entire podcast series, and they came out firing during Game 1. I was all right. This is perfect. They took care of the Lakers, no problem. This is great. And then Dame is injured now. He's definitely missing Game 5, and they're already down 3-1. I don't see any recovery for them. And LA has looked pretty strong the past 3 games that they have won, outside of their seeding game woes, and they didn't look too great then, but LA has looked good. The other LA team, on the other hand, they have not looked as good. They lost, I think it was game 4 without Porzingis. They lost on a
Yeah, man. I mean, I think the big part, right, taken away from the Trailblazers series is like, just like you, I was pretty much on the train that like, yo, if the Trailblazers get in, that's gonna be one tough series. And I feel like the worst part about Portland right now is that I feel like they just continue to get very bad breaks. Dame with the index finger injury, now not playing in Game 5, they pretty much can't protect their cheeks when it comes to avoid getting this gentleman sweep on them. The other big thing with them overall is just like they don't look like the team that was fighting for their lives for 8 games, including, I guess, the ninth game to actually even get into the playoffs in the first place against Memphis. It just looks like a team that used all of their Cinderella energy to get to the playoffs itself, but wasn't able to really carry that into the playoffs against the Lakers. Now, I feel like the big thing with the Lakers, right, is obviously that they've stepped up defensively. There was a lot of shade, I'll say, thrown out towards Danny Green and KCP after game 1, combining only for 1 point, basically not hitting the backside of the backboard at all. And they've come to life a little bit. They've stepped up. I wouldn't say that the 3-point shot is there yet, but I would say that they both have stepped up exponentially on the defensive end, and that's what's really helped them out. I mean, we had a game where Damian Lillard only had 18 points. We said we don't expect that to ever happen again and that would change the outcome of things. Well, it didn't really switch things up all that much because we've seen blowouts since.
and what
So,
you
I mean,
and what you see happening with Dame scoring less is the Lakers are essentially, it's like they're running like the old school box and one, where they're playing defense, but they're just playing tight defense on Dame, whether he's on or off ball. You see him being guarded from the time LA scores a bucket. They have KCP or Danny Green right up on Dame to the point where Dame just kind of points to CJ, and CJ McCollum is the primary ball handler because they can't do anything with Dame until they set a pick for him and get him off of the guy.
I think a great way to kind of transition to my pick anyway, you kind of did a lot of the setup for it, was the matchup with the Clippers, bro. I'm not gonna lie. I called this as going to 7, and I felt pretty good about that just because I didn't feel like Luka and Kristaps Porzingis would fall down lightly in a first round matchup, even with all the guys that the Clippers can throw at their team overall. But man, I don't know if that I've been seeing the words Luca Magic thrown around YouTube, and I mean it's one of those things where bum ankle, no Kristaps. Now they're gonna be missing him for game 5. Um, I think that this series is probably the most entertaining series so far in the first round. Maybe that has a lot to do with the fact that it feels like the only series that might actually go all the way to 7 games. But I think the other thing about it is just the fact that we are seeing a Luka Doncic that a lot of people, including myself, said this is your first year in the playoffs. Will he be able to rise to the occasion? And he's averaging better splits than he did in the regular season. Granted, I mean, what was it, 29, 9 and 9, and now it's 30, 10 and 10. Like it's not too drastic, but he's
Yeah, and I think what a lot of people forget is that he's what, 19?
I think he's 20 now, but like,
He's
yeah, it's
20. Okay,
like
so despite
barely.
his age, he's been playing overseas in Spain. He's been playing in like their highest league since he was like 17. So he's no secret to the spotlight. He's no newcomer. He's been on the stage before. He just hasn't been on the US NBA stage before. And so if they advance, I think this is going to be the hardest matchup that they have, at least until the finals, if they make it that far. Um, like if you look at next round, they're either playing Denver, who's down 3-1 right now, or Utah, with Donovan Mitchell going off. But I just don't see anyone on Denver that's really able to guard him. I think if LA can figure that out, they can not obviously not shut down Mitchell, but I think they can have a better chance of stopping him. So I think this is by far one of the more entertaining series of the playoffs, and it's only the first round.
And before we kind of move on to your next big takeaway, as the Clippers fan on the channel, I think it is only right to ask you, who do you think is going to have to be the quote unquote X factor or the person who needs to step up the most in order for the Clippers to be able to nail down this series? Because by the time this is uploaded, this series will still be going on. The question will just be, what does the series look like in terms of the trajectory? Are the Clippers ahead? Are the Mavericks ahead? Who's on death row? So who do you expect or who do you think needs to step up in order for you guys to be ahead?
I mean, it would be easy to say Paul George. He just needs to start shooting better, because he obviously does. But I actually think Landry Shamet is a big X factor here. You see, he got the nod to start in games 3 and 4, and he had a really good game. He went off like 18 points, which is higher than his season average was. Because with Patrick Beverly being out, we don't really know when he'll be back. The Clippers are not a team to really give timetables for their injuries. It's just kind of, hey, you're feeling better. All right, sweet, get back out there. So I don't know when Beverly will be back out there. So I think if Landry Shamet can really step up into that role of being a primary ball handler, I think it takes a lot of the load off of guys like PG, who sometimes has to dribble the ball up the court and be a playmaker and a scorer and a shooter. Because PG has been getting good looks, he just hasn't been making them. So that's not really like, it's not something that you can fix in practice. It's just kind of a mindset that you have to work on to get out of that slump.
I mean, like you said before, of course, like PG would be like the easy scapegoat here, but like honestly, I feel like it's Marcus Morris. I think the reason why is just because of the fact that he's been the primary guy to guard Luka throughout these games. You know how we mentioned it earlier about the whole like Clippers pride of being able to switch every position and things like that. We talked about this off camera a little bit, and one of the biggest things was our criticism, obviously, of Reggie Jackson being the one to guard Luka on the final shot, knowing good and well that Kawhi Leonard has no reason on Maxi Kleber in the last 3 seconds of a game to be guarding him inside the paint when we know who's getting the ball, why they're getting the ball, and how far away from the basket Luka was getting the ball. I feel like the big thing for Marcus Morris is it's been a highway to the basket every game in this series for Luka. And I think that's the big thing about how he's been able to accumulate these point totals like this. He's trying the good old school rough him up tactic of like, hey, I'ma just beat him down, try to be physical with him, and maybe play him mentally out of the game. Well, this boy in the game regardless. So I think he's gonna have to switch up his tactic a little bit, or and you said this off camera before, and I think it's an interesting thing to touch on, or an interesting thing to be looked at is they got to switch the game up. I know it's a lot of pride on defense of being able to switch everything, but they got to keep that boy Kawhi Leonard on him, or PG has to get into the mind frame that if he's not going to produce offensively in this series, not that he's choosing to or anything, but like if he can't produce offensively in this series, the best he can do is show why he's one of the best two-way wings in the NBA, and at least show up on the defensive end against the Mavericks' best player, who is like killing y'all in terms of like being a primary scorer. But that would be mine. But who or what would you say has the biggest takeaway? Who is another person or another team that you have the biggest takeaway from so far?
The Miami Heat. I'm actually really surprised. I thought Indiana would at least take them to 5 or 6. But Jimmy Butler just he looks different out there. Playoff Jimmy is back. Um, I mean, I don't know if you've heard, but the reports about Brett Brown kind of letting Jimmy walk away because he didn't want to come have a confrontation with him.
Yeah.
Shout out to the Sixers for firing Brett Brown after their sweep. I've been saying that for years, that they just had good luck with draft picks that didn't always get injured and are finally coming together. So I think I think the Heat look really good. Jimmy Butler is the leader that you want in Miami. They're known to be a gritty team. They have a deep bench. I'm so excited for their matchup against Milwaukee in the second round. Um, Obviously, Giannis is a problem, and Miami doesn't really have any lengthy defenders, unless you trust Bam Adebayo to be running the court at all times with Giannis, which I don't know if he has the endurance for that, being that he is a center. Um, but I still think with the depth of Miami that they can at least make it a really good series with Milwaukee.
I'm kind of glad that that's the way you went, because honestly, in the Eastern Conference, the Heat look like the team that we thought they could have been by dropping Jimmy Butler in there. It felt like they had a group of gritty guys, and they just needed a gritty leader, pretty much. And Jimmy Butler is pretty much the captain of the gritty leader kept fan club in that department. Goran Dragic has stepped up significantly from whatever I thought was left of him. The two shooters outside, man, Duncan Robinson and Tyler Hero, man, those boys are eating, and it's scary to see, because honestly, when you can get hot from three like that, I'm not gonna put them in like the Steph Clay range because it's way too early to be doing that kind of stuff. But we know in this league, if you can get hot from three like they can, you can either get back into a game extremely quick, or you could put a team away just as fast. I I'm gonna say it now, and I hope I don't take it back later. But I kind of want to go on the record to say that I think that Heat are gonna take the Bucks out, and I think the big thing about it is the Magic kind of gave us a little bit of something in this first round that I feel like it's kind of sad to look at the Magic and see them as like the test dummies for everybody. It seems like every year, looking back to last year, they get the big win off of the Raptors, and it broke the internet. And then next thing you know, they get killed for the next couple of games, and pretty much the same thing is happening with the Milwaukee Bucks. But I think the thing that we realize the most is that the Milwaukee Bucks really do not have a second guy yet. I feel like looking to Chris Middleton down the stretch, I think that's cool for a regular season. I think that's cool for a couple of games. But I don't know if that can truly last in a 7-game series. I also don't think that whoever their third guy would need to be has stepped up. Eric Bledsoe is wishy-washy. We've not really seen a ton of Splash Mountain when it comes to Brook Lopez. And Dante DiVincenzo is a guy who keeps being brought up on First Take as a potential guy to step up. And don't get me wrong, he was great at Villanova. He jumped out the gym for his NBA combine, but I don't think this is a guy who you should be thrusting in as your number 3 in a big playoff situation. The Heat have dudes everywhere. I mean, everywhere in terms of being able to guard. And I think the sleepiest trade we might have ever saw this season might have actually been the fact that yes, they got Andre Iguodala, but getting Jay Crowder in that trade from Memphis, sneaky pickup considering the fact that we literally have not seen much of Kendrick Nunn this entire season, this entire a playoff series. And Jay Crowder is eating up a lot of those minutes while they try to figure out exactly what to be able to do with Kendrick Nunn moving forward because he's almost essentially been played out of this series. Jay Crowder has been a sneaky dude for them for a minute. And I feel like Jay Crowder, Andre Iguodala, obviously Jimmy, Bam has stepped up, and their shooters on the outside. Yeah, I think the Bucks, they got to be nervous, man, because the Bucks were already a little worried about the Heat during the regular season. Now they got to see him in 7 games with Jimmy buckets on the other side. I don't know, man. Like I said, I'm gonna just go on the record now. Hopefully, I can stick to it down the stretch. But yeah, I think the Heat, the Heat in the second round, man, they're gonna be scary.
And the scariest thing is that the Heat are not even at their peak. If you look at their team, they like you mentioned guys like Duncan Robinson and Tyler Hero. They're rookies. They're rookies. So not only are they on super cheap deals, because I think Duncan Robinson was even an undrafted rookie. Um, you don't have to pay him for a couple seasons. Like Miami has been one of those names that is big in the mix to land Giannis, either through a trade because they have clearly shown that they have the depth and the assets for it, or they can wait it out a year and pair Jimmy with Giannis. Like they are gonna like Pat Riley is one of the best front office executives in the entire league.
I honestly think that's like the greatest way. Jake, you could not have alley-ooped this last takeaway for me any easier because honestly, I gotta transition to the Toronto Raptors, bro. Look, I understand you beat up on a hurt or basically absent Brooklyn Nets team, right? That's pretty much fighting for credibility in this case because of the fact that they were an 8 seed that got depleted before the bubble even started. And now they're just here because they already had a good enough record to make the playoffs as it was, right? But dude, man, Masai Ujiri at it again, my boy. I mean, Pascal Siakam looks like that dude right now. I'm hoping that Kyle Lowry is a go come the second round because I know he went out with a little bit of an injury come that last game. They got some dudes, man. Fred VanVleet is going to command a lot of bread this summer. He is going to command a big contract from somebody if it's not Toronto, the way that man is shooting right now. Their team looks deep. Their team looks like they came to the bubble on a mission. They look like they truly have the talent to repeat. Um, I mean, it with them, I think it's just so scary because their team even now doesn't really feel like it has like a defined star yet, right? Like we're still trying to figure out like where Pascal Siakam's trajectory is. He just went from being the most improved player in the league last season to now being like this number one option guy, big, versatile two-way wing style player. But like where does he lie in like, you know, the top forwards in the league? We're still trying to figure these things out. Yet this team just continues to surprise me with how many people they can bring off the bench. They already have like 5 or 6 guys who average double figures on their team as it is. Norman Powell is a dude who at this point, he just needs to be their two guard moving forward. I think this is a guy who will like be a microwave scorer for them moving forward. And I love the way that he's developing. Boucher is another dude. Rondé Hollis Jefferson. I mean, dude, I know I'm hyping up the Raptors. Is there something that I am like overlooking about the Raptors? Are they really just this good? I know it was Brooklyn, but Jesus.
I think it's just coaching. because when you look at their team, it's like, yeah, you see Pascal Siakam and you see Kyle Lowry, and you're like, wow, like they're decent players. But then you hear they're the 2 seed in the East, and it's like, what? Hold up, what? Like I look at a team like Boston, and on paper, I would take Boston over Toronto any day on paper. If you're showing me a list that includes Kyle Lowry, Pascal Siakam, and like you said, Norman Powell, and then you show me a list that includes Kemba Walker, Jaylen Brown, and Jason Tatum, like I'm taking the Celtics hands down. And I still am. And I feel like a fool for still counting out the Raptors. Granted, I don't think this series really showed much against the Nets because, like you said, they are missing their top like 5 guys. Um, but Nick Nurse, man, I mean, Coach of the Year, very much deservedly so. Shout out to him for leading that team that lost Kawhi Leonard and has seemed to pick up a step. Like not only are they maintaining, but I think they finished with a better win percentage than they did last year with Kawhi.
Mm-hmm.
And this seems silly. I feel stupid for counting them out, kind of like my take on the Culture Blitz podcast with trying to count out the Patriots. Like I want to count out the Raptors because I'm like, they don't have any defined stars, but their coaching, they haven't had any defined stars all season unless you count Pascal Siakam as one already. But they're such a well coached team and they play for each other and you see the intensity that they play with and you just it's tough to beat that, you know?
Yeah, man. I mean, I think the Raptors are going to continue to be, unfortunately, like the afterthought in the East in terms of championship contention until they kind of like continue to prove us wrong. And I find it interesting that you kind of use the Patriots model in terms of our takes on the other podcasts. I mean, this is a team that I mean they don't have the type of longevity or notoriety that maybe the Patriots have, but in terms of the type of production they have at at the coaching spots, obviously Masai Ujiri is doing his thing in terms of being able to identify talent across the board to the point that their team can go 10 deep. Um, I definitely feel for your take when it comes to the Boston Celtics, but I'm starting to fear this Toronto team a little bit more every single night. Every single time I get a chance to look at their team on paper, you see that somebody's averaging a little bit more points than you thought they were. Somebody's defensive win shares are like through the roof, or like this, that, or the third lineup is just producing at an exponential level that you just wouldn't expect them to do. So I think this is a team that's going to be on our radar for the foreseeable future, not just these playoffs. Of course, I think moving forward, they have a lot of decisions to make this summer, but they look like the best in the game right now when it comes to like identifying talent, and they're like showing it right now. So of course, this has been a great episode. Once again on the Buckets Only podcast. If you enjoy our content, please like, comment, and subscribe. Check us out on Instagram at MisfitTV for any of the other stuff that we are doing. Thank you so much for watching us today. We'll catch you in the next one. Peace.